the symptoms of gluten sensitivity and what kind of brain disorders actually are resulting from gluten sensitivity?
Oh, my goodness. It runs the gamut. There are a number of papers of reversing schizophrenia. In the medical literature, reversing schizophrenia with a wheat-free diet, these are not celiacs, these are gluten-sensitive people. Reversing schizophrenia, a year later, they're still checked out of the treatment centers, and they're not on any meds. And they publish a year later, these people are fine now as long as they're wheat-free. So it can be schizophrenia. Most common is depression or anxiety. Those are they're called the affective disorders with wheat sensitivity. That's the most common. Anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, migraines, seizures, any function of the body. If the tissue is being compromised by inflammation, and if wheat is the gasoline on the fire, when you calm down the fire, any symptom may improve.
You know, one of the emerging concepts in medicine today is this idea of inflammation, that most chronic disease is caused by inflammation. Diabetes, obesity, cancer, heart disease, and even dementia.
Yeah.
Even depression and autism and ADD, all we find are linked to inflammation.
Yes, yes.
So you've been involved with the development of certain tests that actually help us look at the immune system response that affects the brain. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
You bet. You know, as far as I know, all degenerative diseases, as far as I know, are diseases of inflammation. At the cellular level, the cell's inflamed. So the basic rule is first to identify, is there inflammation going on, and then why is it there? And stop throwing gasoline on the fire. You know, that's where the wheat comes in or other toxins. So with brain, we want to look for antibodies to your brain. And once again, there's a normal level of antibodies. That's to be expected, just to keep having a healthy brain, make new brain cells. There's a normal reference range. But when you have elevated antibodies to different parts of your brain, you've got a problem. There's some mechanism going on which may not be causing symptoms yet, or the symptoms are not being associated with the elevated antibodies, like depression, or anxiety, or brain fog, or migraines, or seizures. I mean, it doesn't matter what function you talk about in the brain. If it's inflamed, that may be the trigger causing that dysfunction. So we want to look for, are there elevated antibodies to brain tissue? And there are a few labs that will look at that for you now. And they will look to see, do you have elevated antibodies to myelin? Do you have elevated antibodies to cerebellum? Do you have elevated antibodies to gangliosides, which is a component of all nerves? So the value of looking is that you see, wow, I've got inflammation going on in my brain. I feel fine, but if it's elevated...
You may not know you don't feel fine.
That's right.
Often people don't know how badly they feel until they start feeling better.
Right, because they go on a diet or something, they say, well, I feel so much better, I'm thinking clear. They didn't realize they weren't thinking so clear before.
Well, one of the things we've been learning over the last few decades, in addition to the brain science of how we can increase our brain connections and build new brain cells, is that inflammation is a common denominator across a whole spectrum of diseases, pretty much all chronic disease, whether it's heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, of course, autoimmune and inflammatory diseases, but also brain disorders. We know that dementia is inflammation